Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for coming back promptly from coffee. That's much appreciated. It's worked again. I've started to speak and people have gone quiet, so thank you for that. We're moving on now with what I think has been a very useful morning, with a presentation from Sarah and Rhiannon from the Crown Prosecution Service. We're going to listen to both of them talk about investigation and prosecution of sexual offences in the criminal courts. Sarah and Rhiannon. Or if somebody else is going to come up, happy for somebody else to come up. Paul as well? Yeah? Okay, all right.
Great, yeah. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. My name is Sarah Isles. I'm a senior Crown prosecutor at the Crown Prosecution Service, and I specialise in rape and serious sexual offences. I've been a lawyer for 20 years, and I'm very pleased to be here, so nice to meet you all.
Morning, everybody. Paul Jones, Detective Superintendent in Dyfed Police. My role is to oversee the operational delivery of all serious and complex crimes. I've been detective for 25 years. I'm the SRO for Officer Telia within Dyfed Powys. I previously chaired the regional West Wales VAWDRSV board, but that means nothing. When I come to places like this and I see the efforts that people put in to investigate and deal with these types of cases, I feel extremely humbled and somewhat embarrassed that we got such a long way to go as police. So that's me.
So we're going to talk to you today about the investigation and prosecution of sexual offences in the criminal courts. Paul's going to mainly deal with the investigative side, and I'll deal with the legal issues and what actually happens in rape and serious sexual offences at the Crown Court. We're here together to present this presentation today, so I think it's important that we identify that the CPS and the police are independent organisations. We don't work together, but we do to achieve the same aim, and that is the prosecution of the right person and make sure that he's convicted of the right offence. So the police, essentially, their role is to gather evidence and to investigate offences, and then they share that evidence with the Crown Prosecution Service, and we have a meeting together and a discussion as to how we can obtain further evidence which will reach a successful prosecution. The CPS authorise the police to charge particular offences, and they select the right and appropriate offence, criminal offence for the situation. And then we serve the evidence at court and present the case. So that is the difference between our two roles. Okay, we're going to give you a little bit of a snapshot. I don't have statistics. This is my only slide, so don't panic. So 47% of reported rape cases are deemed historic. So that's quite a high number. We have a lot of historic rape cases. 80% of reported cases are outside the forensic window. So there is a very, very slim window in which to obtain forensic evidence. I can speak from a lawyer's perspective. It is really the forensic evidence that we need in order to establish a conviction. Not always, obviously, but if there is forensic evidence there, it would significantly increase the chances of a conviction. Also wanted to say that stranger rapes are very rare. I think it is public perception that that happens all the time, but I can reassure you it doesn't. And rape are more often committed by persons within the family and people that they know, but I know, having seen the audience and heard from your presentations this morning, that you already know that.
Okay, first of all, before we go through the investigation framework, we'll check any detectives in the room, investigators. Anyone want to come up and show us how to do it? Okay, rape investigations. Criminal investigations have got to follow some kind of framework. What I'm going to go through is a very basic, but it's a scalable and a flexible model. Okay, preserve life, number one. Sounds quite obvious, doesn't it? Our priority is to preserve life. we drum it into cops, the importance of gathering evidence, securing evidence and maintaining integrity of that evidence, particularly perishable forensic evidence. So sometimes their desire to seek that evidence may not put the victim's recovery and the victim's welfare first. So those investigations should not come in the way of that. So please remember that if cops do ask for that. So looking at a criminal investigation, what's it look like? Ever done a jigsaw in the past? All put a jigsaw together without any pieces? Yeah, that's what it's like. We've got to put the jigsaw together, but first of all, we've got to find the pieces. And sometimes you've got pieces that people are trying to hide from us. So how do we do that? First of all, our victim. The victim is going to give an account, but we want more as the case goes on in a detailed account. We've got to understand who the victim is, what are the special needs to support that victim, get the best evidence from them, how are we going to approach them, who's the right person, where's the right time to do it. Then we look at the scene. Where's the scene of the offence? What is that scene going to tell us? What forensic evidence is there to put somebody at that scene scientifically that they can't dispute? What else can we get from the scene? Is it just a scene in a room? Is it a bedroom? Is it an outdoor scene? How quick is that evidence going to deteriorate? Is it digital? Is it a digital scene? Is it digital evidence? And he's already spoken about the amount of evidence we get in rape cases, which is digital, and in cyberspace somewhere. Our suspect. Massive focus on suspects in regular present investigations. Again, the timing of the arrest of the suspect, is that right? Do we need to delay it? Is there forensic evidence? Suspect interviews, we're going to probe that account in detail, and we're going to go back and test every little bit they tell us. Witnesses in rape cases. Sarah's already mentioned it. There's seldom witnesses who've actually seen the act in a rape case. So where else do we get that evidence from? If it's a consent issue, where do we go? We go to other people who've had engagement with the victim and with the suspect. Who can tell us the background of them? Who can tell us the behaviour? Who can tell us those little snippets of information that will allow us to build that case? People say it's a 50-50 case, it's one word against the other, no such thing. We always push that a little bit further, read between those lines to get that information. And then the community impact. Included in the community is the victim, victim's family, victim's friends. What kind of impacts are going to have there? When we do a search for witnesses, what perceptions are going to have for the community? So, obviously, not being the lawyer, leave the law a bit to Sarah before I go into a bit more detail in how we'll deal with victims and suspects and build in that case.
I'm very pleased to report that now more than ever there is greater communication between the police and the CPS. Our main role is to ensure that there is sufficient evidence to establish a reasonable prospect of conviction. And so that means we can assist police in terms of framing their investigation in order to be able to establish all elements of the offence. One of the things we look at when we engage with the police is the account given by the victim, by the complainant, and the trauma that they have received. We would like evidence of that, if possible. It can be medical evidence, it can be directly from the complainant, it can be on a video interview with the complainant, but we would stress that if there are any medical issues of the complainant as a direct result of what has happened to them, that is something that we wish to see, and that is part of our gathering evidence. We also need to look at the frequency as to how long these offences have been occurring, and who she or he has shared their experience with. It may be a friend, it may be a family, there may be disclosures made to a variety of different people. We would want statements from those people about the disclosures that that witness has made. If there is a medical examination and we are within the forensic window, then of course that would significantly enhance the case. In terms of the suspect, it is now the case, I'm very pleased to report, that it is very suspect-centric, defendant-centric. It's about focusing on the defendant and how he has committed the offence. We look at all sorts of avenues of evidential material, including CCTV, witnesses who may have been present immediately before the rape or after. But we look at the nature of the offence and how we can identify the traits of this particular defendant and connecting him with the offence.
So back to our jigsaw. We've had a detailed account from the victim, and what does that look like? We're asking somebody to give us intimate detail to a stranger. Could be a well-trained police officer, but very much a stranger. Giving that detail for some of the worst experiences that victim's been through in their life, and the story is going to be potentially played out in court. So we're cognizant of that, and we're aware of how that impacts on the victim, but nevertheless we need that detail to build the case, and this is just the frame of the jigsaw from the victim's account. What Sarah spoke about there, the other witnesses, those are small pieces we're starting to put into place, but we're never going to get a full picture. We know what we want to achieve, but we're never going to quite get there. And sometimes all that engagement with the victim, be it clinical notes, be it notes of conversations, any records of those could hold those little nuggets of information to help us build that case. And I'll just touch very briefly on use and unused material. The investigators in the room all know what I'm talking about. When we investigate a crime such as rape, we will gather material. Okay? Part of that material will be what we're going to present to the CPS to say this is the evidence of our case. The other pile of that material is what's unused. But if that material has any bearing whatsoever in the case, we have to record it, retain it, and reveal it to the prosecutor. And very often, it's those notes that's been made after a conversation with the victim, or disclosure they've made to somebody, or some trait of behaviour. Is a suspect with the victim and they're reporting it? Is that a caring, loving relationship, or is it controlling, coercive behaviour when you won't leave the side? Those are the type of things which will tip us in that balance of getting us over to CPS. We can get that charging decision.
I'm going to piggyback onto that final comment because of my audience. If any of you have a role where you're in direct contact with the victim and you need to obtain an account on her or him as to what has happened, I cannot stress to you enough the importance of those notes. Now, I know you make those notes for your own independent records, for your own compliance issues in whatever sector of the work that you do, but those notes could become and do become very crucial in the investigation of the rape and a prosecution of that offence. So in cases where you have, as Paul has put it, one person's word against another, those are the type of things that would tip the balance when looking at the credibility of the victim's account. If he or she has given a consistent account throughout the investigation, from the outset, so at SARC, with the FME, with a crisis support worker, with a counsellor, then in an ABE with the police who interview the complainant about what has happened, and then she gives, or he gives a consistent account in the dock at court, her credibility will be shot through the roof, which is fantastic when you often have cases where there are no witnesses, there is no CCTV, there is no forensic evidence. We have to look at everything in order to establish a realistic prospect of conviction. So I'm going to move on about the law now and how we prosecute cases in the Crown Court. As a lawyer, that's what I do. I authorise the police to charge offences and authorise the correct charges and assist the police in providing advice as to how to navigate and frame their investigation. But ultimately, I do that because when I get to court, I need to be able to ensure that I have a reasonable prospect of conviction and a jury will convict a defendant. How am I going to do that? First of all, I have to look at our victim. how are we going to present the evidence at court? He or she will be the essence of this prosecution. I'm very pleased to report that gone are the days now where you have probably seen, if you've been to court yourself, or you've seen on the TV, where the victim is placed in a witness box. She's in the witness box, facing the dock where the defendant is sat and facing the jury. As you can imagine, for everybody who doesn't work within that arena, that is very intimidating. Not only do they have to stand there, they have to stand there and give an account of what has happened to them with this really traumatic experience. And if that wasn't enough, they're then going to be called a liar by the defence because what they're saying is not true. Who in their right mind would expose themselves to that? So how do we protect our victims? And I must say it is a balancing act. So we have Section 28, which is an alternative way of giving evidence. Essentially, what happens is when a complaint is made and the police obtain details of that complaint, they do it by way of video evidence. So the complainant is sat in the room with the officer who then asks a number of questions to obtain the account from him or her. That evidence is then played in open court. And that is what is called someone's evidence in chief. The victim is then cross-examined on that evidence. Ordinarily, we must put that witness in the witness box to be cross-examined in open court, in front of the jury, in front of the defendant. But the provisions of Section 28 allow us to have video recorded cross-examination. So prior to the trial, he or she will attend court and they will be asked questions in cross-examination over a live link, over a video link. That will be recorded and played to the jury. So what you have is that two aspects of the victim's account. One, where she gives it freely in answering the officer's questions in an ABE, and two, the cross-examination is recorded and then played to the jury. I must stress, it only applies in Crown Court cases. You would never have that in the Magistrates' Court. To be eligible for the provisions of Section 28, you have to be a vulnerable witness, and those vulnerabilities are in mental disorder, intelligence impairment, that kind of thing. And you can also have intimidated witnesses, and those are witnesses who suffer from fear or distress in relation to giving their evidence. We have to look at what is the essence of this, is how we can achieve the best evidence from our victim. And that is done by way of discussion with the police and the victim as to how they would like to give their evidence. What's the purpose of it? Well, it's to improve the experience of the witness giving evidence. And witnesses can give evidence at an early stage. Now, I'm very sad to report that there is time between while the investigation takes place and a charging decision is made. There's even more time from when the case is finally at court. Months can pass, months and months. And that waiting is absolutely excruciating for the victim, having that hang over his or her head. But by giving the cross-examination, by way of Section 28, they can be cross-examined on their account much, much earlier, very soon after the offence, where memories of what has happened and of the events are more fresh in their mind. And it also maximises the potential for early resolution of hearings, and I'm saying hopefully in front of hopefully encourage a guilty plea, or we can establish there's no longer a realistic prospect of conviction. Because if the witness's evidence isn't sufficient to prove the offence, then the case will be discontinued. Or if the witness's evidence is very, very strong after cross-examination, a defendant may think, I'm going to plead guilty and there will be no trial. So I've gone through some of the benefits there. What I also want to add is that there is more structured cross-examination. Trials in the Crown Court go on for days, sometimes weeks, and the victim can be subject to lengthy cross-examination, which is tough, because he or she is not only given an account of what has happened, they are cross-examined ruthlessly by the defence, who are trying to seek inconsistencies in their evidence, and at times called a liar. And so the more structured cross-examination there is, the less of the impact they will have on the victim. It's not without its difficulties, excuse me. And this is where I would say it's a balancing exercise. I've just harped on for the last 5 minutes about how great Section 28 is. It's not perfect in the realities of succeeding with a prosecution. So you have at trial, the jury will watch the examination in chief from the victim. They will then watch on the telly cross-examination, and they will see the complainant give his or her account, quite detailed, in a stress-free environment. Sometimes on the AB videos you can see a witness's distress and emotions. Sadly, not as good as you could if the witness were right in front of you, if they were sat right in the dock. The emotion attached to a witness then is huge for a variety of different reasons. We've gone through them. But ultimately, Crown Prosecution Service have to persuade the jury that they are sure that this offence has been committed. When somebody is on a TV screen, it's almost not real. They haven't actually met him or her. When you balance that against a defendant who comes out of the dock in a smart suit, stands in the witness box, is crying, saying, "I cannot believe this allegation has been made against me. It has totally ruined my life. It's not true. She's a liar. I'm absolutely devastated by it all. How could you possibly believe this is the case?" And then gives his or her account as to what happened. The effect that has on a jury is massive, and I do believe that that strongly affects our conviction rates. There are many things that affect conviction rates, including myths and stereotypes, as we've discussed this morning, but that has an impact. It's not without its problems, is what I'm saying. There could be IT difficulties, late identification, that actually the Section 28 is appropriate in certain circumstances. There may be a lack of support by way of intermediaries, and counsel, getting a consistent barrister to deal with cases from start to finish is also a struggle, and court listings and the impact on other cases. There is a significant amount of time that a complainant will have to wait. Even though they may have given their evidence by Section 28, the trial will then be some time in the future. There are alternatives, and we must not forget them. So please have that discussion with complainants, with the victim. Please talk to them at length about what they want. Alternative special measures can achieve the same aim, perhaps better. And please remember that there are screens, live links, evidence can be given in private. Removal of wigs or gowns, I must say that rarely happens. It's quite often with child witnesses that happens. Also having an intermediary present. The aim of the game is to best support the witness to achieve the best evidence in the case. How can we go about it? What happens when you get to court? There's a pre-trial and preparation hearing, and a timetable is set. Prosecution evidence is served now at the point of charge. So when the defendant goes to court, he will always know the nature of the case against him and the extent of the evidence. We do not drip feed evidence right up until the day of trial. In RASO cases, rape and serious sexual offences cases, there is ongoing engagement between the police and the CPS to make sure that all that evidence has already been obtained. Why? Because we need to serve it at the point of charge. We have to get the defendant to understand the nature of the case against him and what evidence that we have. There is also a familiarisation visit not long after the pre-trial and preparation hearing to look at the resources so that the victim can see what's required of her. And an opportunity of memory refreshing. So prior to the pre-recorded cross-examination, they get the opportunity to see their ABE, see what they've told the police already. At the Section 28 hearing, the witness attends court or another live link venue, but it is usually when they're at court. The judge goes into a separate live link room to meet with the witness, and counsel will also be there and present. The witness is cross-examined through the live link within the court building, and as I've said, that is recorded. And also, if anybody is ever at court as an IDVA with that person, they can go into that meeting and support the witness through their evidence. And then at trial, 12 members of the jury come in. Prosecution open their case and tell the jury what their case is all about from start to finish. They then call the victim. The account that she's given by way of ABE is played to the jury. The account he or she is given by way of Section 28 cross-examination is played to the jury. Or the witness attends court with the alternative special measures and gives her account in open court and is cross-examined. The jury then retire. Once the prosecution's case is closed, the defence case will then heard, and the defendant will give his evidence. He will tell the jury what happened, what is his version of events. He too will be cross-examined on his version of events. And finally, then there'll be closing speeches with the prosecution and the defence. The support given within the courtroom to victims is often insufficient. If they are lucky, they will have an IDVA with them. If they are unlucky, they won't. If they're lucky, they'll have their family with them. If they don't have family there, they won't. So not only are they walking into an environment that it completely exposes very personal details about them, if they have lack of support, that can also fundamentally crush our case. The amount of cases that are discontinued at the door of trial because a complainant does not want to proceed for any of the reasons we have discussed, unfortunately, are high. So we have to make sure we get it right. We get it right at the beginning in terms of what special measures are provided, and we get it right at the beginning in terms of the evidence that we have, so that the defendant is encouraged to enter a guilty plea. You'll be pleased to hear that is a literally whistle-stop tour of an investigation and a prosecution. How we ever fitted that in 30 minutes, I will never know.
And if I can just end in one plea, please. If you receive a disclosure of rape or sexual offences, document it, keep it safe, and get all the detail. How did that victim present? What do they say? What's the circumstances? Give that victim a head start if they want to come forward in 3-4 years' time to proceed with a criminal justice outcome. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Paul, Sarah, thank you very much. I don't know how you fitted it in either, but you did, so thank you for that. It's really important, isn't it, that we understand what we are all subject to rules, irrespective of which part of the system we work in. It's really important that we understand what those rules are, and it's really important that we understand the preparation that we need to do to make sure that we can apply those rules in the right way to get the successful outcome that we'd all wish us to get. So it's really helpful to get the insight into that. This is a highly collaborative approach which we need to take, and that's a real good example of how we need to make sure that we maintain that collaborative approach all the way through the journey that people are on. So thank you ever so much for that. That was excellent. I'm pretty good at sort of timing myself, so that when I finish speaking, up comes the next preparation, and almost by magic that's happened. So we're now going to ask Eleanor and Fleur to give us the final presentation this morning. Eleanor is from the NSPCC and is the Senior Policy and Public Affairs Officer, and Fleur is the Deputy Chief Executive Officer from the Rape and Sexual Assault Support Centre in North Wales. We're looking forward to hearing your presentation on looking to the future, the benefits and purpose of therapeutic interventions after child sexual abuse and sexual violence. So welcome both.
Hi everyone. We've just been introduced, but I'm Ellie and I'm from the NSPCC.
Hi everyone, I'm Fleur and I'm the Deputy CEO for RASI North Wales. That's the Rape and Sexual Abuse Support Centre.
Okay, so I'm just going to kick off, and obviously what we want to talk about is interventions following child sexual abuse, and also the sort of importance of support in the moment of disclosure. But I'm going to speak also a little bit about a service that the NSPCC runs called Letting the Future In, which is a therapeutic service for children who've been sexually abused. Oh, look at that, it's working perfectly. Okay, so just to kick off, I wanted to speak a little bit about some of the broader work that the NSPCC does in this arena. So we very much feel that keeping children safe is everybody's responsibility, and that we very much support a public health approach to child sexual abuse, and that ensures that that everybody should be responding to CSA. And that the response to CSA and tackling it lies with everybody. So what we need to do is create an environment which enables disclosure for children and young people, and that environment is it's all the places that children access and all the spaces that they access. So we need to intervene early to stop abuse and neglect. We obviously know that intervening early can improve outcomes for children and families. So a lot of the policy work in Wales is, and obviously as a policy officer, I'm going to speak to this, is on this agenda is around the CSA action plan from Welsh Government, and that sets out a number of responsibilities and expectations, as well as mandatory RSE. Which NSPCC obviously welcomed. And I think that that's really important for creating that environment that I spoke to just now in terms of those sort of safe spaces for children. We also have the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child ratified in Wales, which enshrines the right to be protected from violence and the right to recover. So we certainly have levers in Wales to lobby for children. And then in terms of spotting the signs, so abuse is never the fault or responsibility of the child. But we also know that children who've experienced abuse may feel guilt or confusion or shame. So they may not understand that what has happened to them is abuse or recognise it. So it's really vital then that adults are able to spot the signs of child abuse and know what to do if they have concerns. When children are able to speak out and seek support, they must be listened to and provided with the right support in a timely manner. Right. Okay, so we have a resource, and I think I've seen some already out and about, so that's great, called Let Children Know You're Listening. So as I've sort of talked about, everyone has a role to play in children's lives to keep them safe from abuse and neglect. And we want all children to understand abuse, so that if they do experience it, they can ask adults that they trust for help. Welsh legislation already requires professionals who work with children to report any child at risk, but we also know that some people need help to know what to do when interacting with a child who is disclosing. So what we call for at NSPCC is that all those employed in public services, especially those working directly with children, are trained to recognise signs and symptoms of trauma and abuse and respond appropriately. It's also vital that adults know how to interact sensitively with a child who is disclosing. So, as I said, we have a resource called Let Children Know You're Listening, and this was developed because we had that understanding that some adults didn't always feel confident or know what to do in that moment. As I've said, there's a guide on sort of reassuring children. It's very much about putting them at the centre of the conversation, so that they're in control of the pace, flow, and direction of the conversation. So I have a video, and I really hope it works. Do I just click it? Oh, okay.
It's never easy when a young person discloses abuse.
There are probably 1,000 things going through your head, from trying to remember your organisation's safeguarding procedure to asking the right questions. Should you be asking questions at all?
Let's move on. Okay, so I'm going to talk about letting the future in. So I don't have a practitioner with me today. If there's any specific practice questions, I might have to refer those back. But there are contact details at the end of the slides. Letting the Future In is a therapeutic service for children and young people. Currently, we're covering Cardiff and the Vale, and it's for children aged 4 to 17. The basis for the work is to build a therapeutic relationship with the child or young person, providing them with a safe space where they are not feeling judged to support them to recover. So, who's it for? Okay, so it's cases where there's been a joint investigation, so for example, between police and children's services, or indeed a single agency investigation. Or where cases where a multi-agency team has decided that there is a strong possibility that sexual abuse has occurred. So, for example, there could have been an allegation made, but the child or family don't want to take it further, or it's felt there wasn't enough evidence to take the case to court. But children's services, for example, have believed there is the likelihood that abuse has occurred. The child should be living in a stable living environment, with a parent or carer, and not with the alleged perpetrator, unless there is a robust safety plan in place. But safety plans would usually be if it was sibling abuse, for example. So not if it was an adult perpetrator. And also the plan would be regularly reviewed to keep an eye on safety and that sort of thing. Of course, parents are critical to the child or young person's recovery, so there's also work that is done with them to support the child through the process. Any siblings that require support can also receive that through the service. And as I said, it's for children who are aged 4 to 17, but there is support for children up to 19 with mild or moderate learning disabilities. Okay, so there's an assessment period of between 3 and 4 sessions, and then there's also sessions with the parent. That assessment period takes around 4 to 6 weeks. Our practitioners will meet with the young person and the parent carer, introduce the service, get to know them, gather information about the situation and experiences. There is use of the standardised measure trauma symptoms checklist for the child, and I've had to put that in bold, and that's giving an indication of the symptoms, and it's completed again midway or at the end of the work, and that's to inform sort of outcomes, next steps, that sort of thing. And then children can be offered up to 24 sessions and up to 8 sessions for the parent or carer, depending on outcomes of those initial assessments. And children are supported through various methods such as art, play therapy, talking, storytelling, activities, educative materials, that sort of thing. Okay, and so in terms of some of the findings, so it is the only intervention of its kind that has had a robust evidence base and proven positive outcomes. The service was evaluated in collaboration with the Universities of Bristol and Durham, and it's the largest multi-site randomised control trial in the world for sexual abuse interventions. the evaluation of impact found the services highly valued by children and their carers. It identified improved mood, confidence, being less withdrawn, a reduction in guilt and self-blame, reduced depression, anxiety and anger, improved sleep patterns, and better understanding of appropriate sexual behaviour. For younger children, there was some evidence of reduction in the intervention group in the 12 months follow-up. So what it's sort of suggested through the evaluation is that improvements may take a little longer for younger children, or indeed to be recognised by their carers. So the full sort of evaluation is available on the NSPCC Learning website if people did want to have a look at it in more detail. And then that's just details of how to refer to LTFI if that's of interest. And if you want to scribble it down quickly, and then I will pass over to Phil. Thank you. Oh God! Oh, it's something's. I'm not going to touch it. Andy.
You have to go back into the presentation.
Oh, I see.
You managed it. You haven't even touched
My
it.
virus. Virus is coming in. It came on the video. It's coming on this. Yeah.
Your own practice.
Is that one there?
That's the one, yes.
This one?
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you for that, and thank you for Ellie as well. So again, I'm Flair, and I'm from the Rape and Sexual Abuse Support Centre in North Wales. And I'm here just to discuss the service provision that we do and the benefits of the therapy that we provide to survivors accessing our services. So what we do, we're the only organisation in North Wales that provides specialist intervention to all survivors of sexual violence. And our service is available to anyone above the age of 3. And we deliver services across the whole of North Wales, across the 6 counties of North Wales. Our main centre is located in Bangor, and we have available outreach centres across the 6 counties. And just to make sure that we reach everyone, we've also got a mobile therapy unit that was funded by the Welsh Government last year. And our services are available face-to-face, telephone and online. Now, I've provided data for the last 5 years, and as you can see, referrals to the centre have doubled from 2017 to now. I could have provided data for the last 10 years, and you would have seen that referrals to the centre have actually 5 times higher than they were 10 plus years ago, where they were 200 a year. And this year we've received 1,037 referrals to the organisation. Just a bit more context on that referral rate as well is data in comparison to last year. The number of people with autism and neurodiverse needs had doubled to the organisation. And as well, we've seen a significant increase in people referring to us from the LGBTQ communities. And I think it's important that we raise here the importance of not a generic service for sexual violence, and that you have to consider the importance of specialist intervention. And our organisation trains all our staff and counsellors on providing services for the whole range of people presenting to us and referring to our agency. So just to touch on our children's service, it's a different process to refer to the organisation. So children's service, because the adult service, there's more range of services because they're suitable for adults. So with our children's service, as soon as they refer to us and respond to confirming they want our service, they undertake a brief initial telephone assessment. And from there, they're either signposted to another organisation or hopefully into our counselling waiting list. And, excuse me, and from that, they then allocated a according to their needs, a specialist counsellor who has a range of skills to meet their individual needs. And just on that note as well, from our referrals, what we have found as well is that people referring to our organisation, their mental health needs are much more complex over the last recent years, and they're presenting with more issues and complex needs. And again, that highlights the importance of training counsellors and ensuring that they have that range of specialism to deal with the vast issues that they present to us. Like, most of our clients present with suicidal ideation and self-harming, and also complex PTSD. And we provide training to all our counsellors to ensure that they can meet those needs for our clients. And our data analysis from our DPMS also shows that over 90% of survivors accessing our services report a significant improvement in their mental, physical and emotional health, with also a reduction in suicidal ideation and self-harming behaviours as well. This is really important. It has an impact for the survivor, but also for family and the society as well. So, forward on to our referral flowchart for our adult clients. As you can see, it's the same process, the first 3 parts, and then they get their assessment, and they're assessed then if they're suitable to go on to an initial meeting waiting list. That's where a more detailed assessment is taken place to assess their suitability and also to make sure that we place them with the right counsellor. We have a range of services from that point, if they're suitable. We have a holding service there's 3 different services there for our survivors. We have also a new ISVA service. I'm saying new, it's a year actually. And I'll talk about that a bit briefly afterwards. And we also have Rewind Technique. This is a new project that we're undertaking. Rewind Technique is a form of therapy that's been proven to be very successful with survivors of sexual violence. And we have recently trained some of our counsellors to be piloting this new Rewind Technique. And what we're hoping is, because our referral rates have increased so much, we are hoping that Rewind Technique is a 1 or 2 session process, whereas counselling can take up to 20 weeks. So the hope is it could be a holding service, or it could impact and reduce our waiting list as well. And then on to the counselling service as well. We have a range of counsellors that provide a range of specialisms, which I will be able to talk about in the next slide. So as an organisation, we're person-centred at our core, but we use an integrative model. So that means that the skills within the team, we have a range of different counsellors with a range of different skills, from person-centred therapy to cognitive behavioural therapy, EMDR, play therapy, which is really important to work with children and young people, and also TA, transactional analysis, and DBT, mindfulness, and again, the Rewind Technique, which hopefully, watch this space, we will be able to give you some really good data on it next year if we're invited again next year. And then just a bit more about our holding support service. So we have developed this a lot because of the referral increasing into the organisation. So we have a telephone holding support service, which is hosted by ISVA in collaboration with the Live Fear Free helpline. So that's to support our survivors whilst they're waiting for therapy. And then we have newly developed pre-therapy workshops. Now, these psychoeducational 1.5-hour sessions, and feedback has been extremely positive. It holds them while they're waiting for therapy, because there's nothing worse that when they come to our service, being put on a waiting list, and usually they're at that rock bottom point then, where going into a waiting list is just not right for them. So we need to hold them in that meantime. And the pre-therapy workshops, along with our holding service, is proving to be very successful with supporting them. At the moment, we've got a trauma-informed brain and trauma, which is educating them on understanding what they've experienced, normalising for them, then they're not the only one, and it's okay to feel like this. But we also have some pre-therapy workshops starting this week as well. EFT, which is butterfly tapping. I'm not sure if anyone knows about that, but that's a really good grounding technique to keep them safe while they're waiting for therapy. And again, it's the rewind technique, which is it's a really exciting new project that we're piloting at the moment. And our ISVA service, this is a new service as well to support our survivors. We do work closely with the Amethyst Arc, which is in Colwyn Bay, but what we have found is that some of our survivors, they wanted a one-stop service and they don't want to maybe proceed to another organisation for ISVA service. And she's got a full caseload. We were very fortunate. She's come from North Wales Police, actually, our ISVA currently, and it's being very successful. And we probably will be looking for another ISVA soon. And some other complementary services that we offer within the organisation is psychoeducational group therapy, STAR programmes, which has been developed by our lead clinician, and also a sexual violence recovery toolkit. Those are happening at the moment, and again, those are holding services, or they can have it after therapy or pre-therapy. We also have peer support groups, coffee and cake, and email support that they can contact anonymously for support, and also a Taste of Recovery online programme. This is a service that we offer if they're risk assessed and appropriate, that they have lifetime access to, that they can access afterwards, even 2 years after therapy. Will provide them with grounding techniques to support them if they feel that something's triggered them or they've gone back. So before referring to the organisation, they may try the Taste of Recovery first. And we have also recently, well, it's in its second year now, we were funded by North Wales Police to develop an educational training programme called Don't Steal My Future. This is, at its current, it's for 14 plus, and we deliver it to schools, colleges and universities. It's really exciting. It's offender focus, which is really important, but it does also address the needs of the survivors. So we're reaching out to them in schools, because as much as our therapy service is essential, we do need to stop sexual violence before it gets to the point of them being referred to us. And the feedback we've had about Don't Steal My Future has been amazing, and it's currently being developed for 11-year-olds plus. So hopefully we'll be able to reach them even sooner, so they understand the consequences of offending as well. And also, again, just on that note, the importance of our service in providing services to survivors, but not forgetting if we can educate and train beforehand to reduce the occurrence of sexual violence. And that's what we are providing to schools and colleges. We are going into schools delivering Don't Steal My Future, but we are also strengthening links with these establishments and also offering them the opportunity for bespoke training on how to identify and facilitate disclosures as well, which is, again, really important that they understand, and that they can encourage people to disclose so that they can refer to the right organisation. And our plans for the future. So we are currently, the referrals for neurodiverse clients has doubled in the last year, and we are currently, tomorrow in fact, we have Autistic UK visiting the centre for an audit and providing training, and we've also sourced training for all staff, so we are truly trauma informed on providing services for neurodiverse clients. We are further enhancing our Don't Steal My Future project, so it's inclusive of 11-year-olds plus. This is in response to research and data that we've gathered and feedback from teachers and schools saying there's a real need for us to reach young boys as young as 11 who Children's Commissioner stated in her report that they were accessing pornography from the age of 11. So it's really important that we can reach out to young boys at this age. And we are, our mobile therapy unit, that's been going amazing, but it is also amazingly, it's reaching out. We're going to schools, colleges, various locations across North Wales, raising awareness of RASA and sexual violence. So we are going to further develop that. as well as our peer support programs and our psychoeducational programs as well. We really need to do this because it doesn't look like our referral rates are dropping. They've consistently been growing and it's still showing the same trend in data now as well. And that's if you want to contact us or make a referral. I'm not sure if these slides are being used. Will you be sharing the slides afterwards? Yeah, so you can get the information from there if you want to contact us directly for any further information. And my details are there as well. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you. Yeah, problem.
Obviously, I need to apologise to Ellie and Fleur for my intermittent IT virus, so apologies about that. I hope it didn't put you off too much, but I told you it comes at any time. So thank you again, really excellent presentation. All our speakers, I think, have provided us with an excellent overview, and we've tried to look at the whole system, haven't we, in terms of what we're doing here. They will be available, I guess, over lunch if you want to ask them any questions. I've sort of put them on the spot there, so I guess they'll be available over lunch. Just try and sum up what I heard. So we're very privileged, aren't we? We're very privileged because we work in Wales and we work to serve the people in Wales. There's this thing called the Goldilocks principle, isn't it, which is just the right size. And Wales is just the size. It's just the right size to enable us to do lots of things together and to work together. And people in other nations are envious of that. And they should be envious of that. They should also be envious of the passion that we have in Wales to do things right and to do the right thing. So we're very privileged. We've all spoken, all of the speakers have spoken about the importance of organising things around the individual. And that's absolutely right, of course. It's really difficult to do because naturally we organise around services. But we've all spoken about the need to organise around individuals. We've also spoken about the need for collaboration. And that is really, really important. And events like this clearly help in that. They form bonds and allow us to have long and established working relationships. It's really important that we do that. God, public services go through reviews every now and then, don't they? You know, we're reviewed every 2 minutes on everything. And it's really important that we learn from those, clearly. But what's more important is we move forward. So again, speakers have spoken about the need to move forward. It's really important that we keep that in the forefront of our minds. We've got laws, we've got standards, we've got rules, we've got regulations, and they're helpful, actually. They don't stop us doing things. I think they enable us to do things. And I get the sense that we are at a pretty good moment in time, actually, in terms of being able to move things forward. And the people that can move that forward are the people in this room. They're all of us. We all can have a responsibility to do that. It's not other people. It's not somebody else's responsibility. It's our responsibility to be able to do that. Data is important, and people have shared data with us. And I think the other thing is we've spoken about our perspective on things. Two sides of the same coin. You can look at data and you can look at it in one way or you look at it in another way. It's really important that we have that open mind. And if we have that open mind and understand what the data is telling us and focus on the individual, then we're really going to provide a great service. And the only way that we're going to improve things is by providing a great service. If we provide that great service, all those other things that we need to do, all those things which we are responsible for, will be delivered. So it's really important, I think, that we do that. We also violently agree on lots of things, which is great. And it's really, really important when things become difficult that we continue to violently agree on lots of things. Because otherwise the temptation will be, let's disagree on a few things. So we have to build up momentum. We have to move things forward. So please keep violently agreeing on lots of things. It's really important that we do that. We've spoken about the system sort of grinds us down a little bit if we're not careful. So pace and delivery is really important in this. So the fact that we're setting ourselves self-imposed deadlines that we all want to work to, I think is really important, because that helps in terms of that pace and delivery. Actually, money is not the issue. If we put a good enough case forward, we can find money. The system somehow finds money. So let's not make money the barrier in terms of what we're doing. And it would be great if we could move from having a system that's reviewed every 2 minutes to one which we are continuously evaluating. That we are saying, actually, we are doing self-evaluation on this. We're doing this consistently, and this is the right thing to do. We don't need other people to tell us that, because we know that. And if we work in that collaborative way, I'm sure we can do that. And then my final plea is, please make sure that we continue to look forward. We have a real opportunity here. It would be such a shame if we didn't grasp that real opportunity. And events like this are really important in that. So that's my sort of soapbox moment. I'll get off my soapbox now, but thank you for bearing with me while I went through that. A few more important announcements. If you have specific dietary requirements, your box of food will be on the table somewhere, and Andy will be able to point you in the right direction. So we're inclusive in terms of making sure everybody will be able to eat. We've got the workshops set up. I think there are 5 workshops, and they're in the rooms opposite.
Yes, they are 5 workshops. Workshop 5, working with victims and survivors, will be held only from 1:15 to 3, unfortunately, and then there we will reallocate delegates to the other workshops.
Okay, did you get that? 5 workshops. If you happen to be signed up for workshop 5, that session runs from 1:15 to 3 o'clock. And then if you were in the later session, you'll be reallocated to another session. Please make the most of the workshop time. This is all about engaging and sharing ideas, so please use that time wisely. It would be great if we could do that. And thank you for your contribution, and look forward to catching up with you during the course of the day. Thank you, everybody.